Macmillan Audio presents Sleepless in Scotland by May McGoldrick. Read for you by Saskia Maarleveld. Chapter 1. June, 1818. Edinburgh. As two figures hurried past the dark, dripping walls of St. Giles, the bells in the tower tolled 11. They were late. High Street, which formed the spine of Edinburgh's old town and ran from Castle Hill down to the palace, still pulsed with life in spite of the foul weather and the hour. A handful of revellers spilled out of a tavern door across the cobbled street, led by a pair shouting at one another and ready to brawl. Beneath the flickering oil lamps, others gathered to witness the imminent battle. And under the meagre cover provided by overhangs and shop doorways, homeless people huddled together against the damp and turned frightened eyes on the impending violence. Phoebe Pennington glanced up at the crowned steeple of the cathedral, lost in the darkness and mist. Pulling up the collar of her coat against the persistent drizzle, she tried to match the strides of Duncan Turner, the surly Highlander she employed for nights like this. Dressed in men's clothing as she was tonight, she expected no one to give them a second glance. But she was no fool. Occasionally the places she needed to go required a strong arm, quick reflexes, and a thorough knowledge of the streets. As a former Edinburgh constable, dismissed after being injured on duty, Duncan possessed all of that. This was one of those occasions. Phoebe had never before been to the vaults beneath South Bridge. Originally designed to form the arched supports for the bridge that spanned the urban valley, known since the Dark Ages as Cowgate, the vaults were now infamous as the seediest portion of the cellars, tunnels, and caverns that formed Edinburgh's underground city. Not 50 paces on, Phoebe found the dark wind she'd been directed to take, and looked at Duncan. He nodded wordlessly. As they turned into the alleyway, a meek voice called out from a murky niche. "Spare a halfpenny, sir." A small, ragged girl appeared, keeping her distance from them. Phoebe stopped. In the darkness behind her, a bundle of rags stirred, and the sound of a woman's wheezing cough reached Phoebe's ears. "What are you doing here so late?" Weariness clouded the girl's eyes. "Me mum's sick." Phoebe didn't have to ask. This had to be another case of the sick being put out of a poorhouse. Looking at this ragged figure before her, Phoebe felt a flush of anger wash through her. With a commission due to arrive from London to inspect the poorhouses, administrators all over the city had been covertly emptying their facilities for the past month of the sick and those too old to work. The streets of Edinburgh, from the Grassmarket to Leith, were now crawling with women and children like these two. And this was precisely the reason why she was meeting her informant tonight. Secretly writing for the Edinburgh Review, and using an assumed name to hide her identity, even from the editors, Phoebe had been producing articles about corruption and providing a voice for those who could not make themselves heard. What was happening now to the city's poor was a disgrace, and she intended to expose it. The man she was meeting tonight had records of the evictions and minutes of meetings, proof she could use in her articles. She felt Duncan's impatient presence behind her. "Can your mother walk?" she asked. Getting a nod from the girl, she continued. "Rouse her and go down High Street to the close, just past the Bull's Head Tavern. It's not far. At the end of the close, you'll find a house with a green lantern in the window. They'll take you in. Understand me?" "Aye. Thank you, sir." The government was failing these two, but shelters like the ones her sister Jo funded were scattered across the city. "Good girl." Phoebe put a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?